Sorry, we're starting a bit late. We had a few loose ends we needed to wrap up. But we are...
Yep, here it goes.
We are ready to start the new adventure that is The Last Wing of Eden. Are you ready for this?
If I said no, would it make any difference?
And we need to head to Armorang. You know, I realized going through my glamour plates last night,
Uh-oh.
I have like 3 different plates that are for Dragoon.
Yeah? Okay.
Maybe I should like change my look or something, or I don't know.
So you can change your look. You know, there's like Summer Dragoon and Winter Dragoon and
How about
I'm more
Red
Dragoon
Dragoon?
than thou.
I like Red Dragoon.
Maybe.
Hey,
So is that more Dragoon than thou?
no, that would be the Asian Dragoon.
Ah.
I could do Asian Dragoon, but then you'd get absolutely no facial expressions whatsoever.
As if you don't phone everything in anyway.
Eh? It is the Elysian way.
Yes.
Technically, I should have 4 plates for Dragoon. There's one that I actually rather like that I currently don't have plated. But I need my plates for other things.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Also, the Starlight Celebration started last night. At some point, the Bun Buns will need to do that.
Yes.
Too many things to do. Not enough time to put the pointy into them.
Yeah, well, I assume the celebration will probably go through the new year.
I think it might end before the new year because I think that's when they start their actual New Year celebration.
Yeah. Anyway, the 27th would be a Sunday, 2 days after Christmas. Maybe do it then.
Probably
And
over
we can treat
in Mordsuk. Yeah, I see a blue bang in Mordsuk.
And we can treat everyone to bad singing.
Oh God, yes. Well, it depends on if they do that this year. We don't know. I've not been spoiled on what the new holiday is like, so.
But it won't be the same if they don't have that.
Hello, Yalfort.
Empty promise. Yalfort is so engrossed in the slip of paper in his hands that he barely notices your approach. Do try not to startle him. Rylea, so the rumors of your knack for being in the right place at the right time are true. You see, we've just completed our preparations for another expedition into the empty. Miss Thayrin and Miss Gaia agree that it's high time you all went to see how things are coming along. Though I must say, being at their beck and call night and day does test my patience on occasion.
Yeah, sorry about that. Teenage girls, what can I say? Well, well, fancy seeing you here.
Oh, it is.
Thayrin, Rylea. We were just getting ready to ride on the Sky Slipper. Care to join us?
There was one other thing I should mention before you depart. Now that the situation in Yulmore has settled down somewhat, my associates have made some headway in investigating your past, Miss Gaia.
Oh? Is that so? I thought that's what you wanted. So I did. But I quite like the way things are now. Digging around my past might, I don't know, spoil it somehow. Besides, uncovering the truth behind the voice in my head and the strange powers is but to be more interesting than whatever life I had in Yulmore. I understand. We'll find the answers together, just like everything else.
How were the coffee biscuits?
Yeah, how were the coffee biscuits? Oh, they were delicious, as always. But I hear they're quite fattening, so we usually just buy one and have half each. And then you always go and get another one anyway. Yes, but we break that one in half too, so it's fine. And we might as well just have one each to begin with. Honestly, Reen, I sometimes wonder if you've got biscuits for brains. Though I must say, my time in the Crystarium has been rather enjoyable. We even have a chance to make a necklace from that ice crystal we found. In any case you're wondering, I haven't been neglecting my training. I wouldn't want my skills to get rusty just because Thayrin's not around. I'm ready for whatever lies ahead. Aranje would also be pleased to hear that you've had your head in those fussy old tomes. I've even done a bit of studying myself. After all, it's up to us to take up the care of the empty now. I'm looking forward to see how things have changed since our last visit. Come on, let's head over to the derrick. They're being adorable.
Oh, well, it's their job. I'm hoping one of these days I'll be allowed to visit the empty and see those remarkable changes for myself. Seems like a fair reward for all of my hard work.
Someday, Alford. Someday. I think a dust storm has blown in.
Yeah, time to leave.
Are you kidding? We're going to fly through the middle of it. I heard that sheep. Evil, evil creature. Evil.
And for those of you who haven't been around, this is the Sky Slipper.
Thayrin's love boat. Kind of.
An air car or an air raft by any other name.
Yeah. Gaia? This time, those giant ant things had the good sense to leave us alone on our way here. Seems they've learned their lesson. Reen? I don't suppose you're taking the helm this time? Yeah, sure. Wait, I'll pilot this time. Oh, I didn't realize you knew how. While you were off training, I was practicing with another Sky Slipper they had over at the Crystarium. Really? That's fascinating. Hardly. You've been pulling more than your own weight, and I just wanted to do what I can to contribute. So you two can sit back, relax, and leave it to me.
I'm always fine with that.
Mean? Well, Gaia certainly keep that quiet. She's just full of surprises, isn't she? Yeah, well. There's no need to look so apprehensive, you know. Let's get going, shall we?
Mm-hmm. And your choice of 7 years. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, there's a reason why this place is called the Empty. It's so strange suddenly seeing you at the controls. Why didn't you tell me you were practicing? I thought I'd surprise you. That's all. Well, consider me surprised. All this time I thought you were only good for smashing things with your hammer. Ow! That was rude. Humph! Bring that up again and you can walk the rest of the way. I'd best behave. I wouldn't want to get stranded in the empty and miss all the festival. Eh? Festival? I suppose this is the first time you've heard of it. We haven't exactly been keeping it a secret, but it's still in the planning stages. You see, the return of the night sky has brought lots of changes, and while everyone is glad, the reality is it's been quite stressful and having to adapt to a new way of life. Seeing how hard our elders are working to keep the Crystarium running, youths like myself came up with the idea of hosting an event as a way of expressing our appreciation. Once we return from the empty, I'll be helping as one of the organizers.
I'd offer to help, but I think you have everything well in hand.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I wouldn't be so sure about that, but I tried my best to make it a success. If everything goes well, all you'll need to do is turn up and enjoy yourself. How about you, Gaia? Would you like to help with the festival? What was that? I haven't been listening. My, leg is cramping up a bit. Piloting this thing must have made me more tense than I'd realized. Then let one of us take over. Oh, quit fussing. No, I'll be fine. Well, as long as you're sure. But if you feel like switching places, you just say the word.
Gaia, you're almost as bad as lying as Thayrin is.
Yeah.
And now for the not-so-empty.
No. How could this be? It's starting to crawl back in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that explains it. Ooh.
It's winding down.
Light. Does that mean there's still too much of it in the empty? I'm no expert, but this might be the result of losing control when you restored the the ice element. Even though I tried to use darkness to hold back the light spilling forth, it seems it wasn't enough. Then we're right back to where we started. This is my fault. No, Reen, you mustn't blame yourself. Ah! You have returned to me. Restore the darkness while you still can. A familiar voice, an inescapable feat, the promise of salvation at the precipice of ruin. In remembrance of a lost past, I would find my truth. Oh boy. Reen? It's been so long since Guy had one of her headaches, though I thought the fairy might have disappeared for good. Do you think it's got something to do with Eden?
Oh, certainly.
Fear of the dark.
Gaia appears to be conversing with the voice inside her head. More sounds.
Store. Darkness.
Parrots.
I heard that, dear. What did you say, Gaia? Restore the darkness to the world flooded by light. Ah, that's it. We thought we restored the balance to the 6 elements, but perhaps they're still too strongly aligned with the light. If that's the case, maybe we can set things right by using darkness. By using darkness? Are you serious? But hold on. It might actually work. Gaia, that's a brilliant idea. I wouldn't go that far. I just remembered what I learned during our adventures, that's all. But this does mean we need to call upon your services again, if that's all right with you. Yeah, we're here for you.
Why else would we be here?
We've come this far together. We'll see our mission through to the end, to Eden's core.
Right.
Double check. Camp looks pretty empty.
Yeah.
Off to Eden's core.
I don't think Ariane even left any microwavable popcorn behind.
Hey, Dylan!
Hey.
We're almost there. Gaia under the crowd. I'll say this one thing before we start. If all goes horribly wrong, don't even think about pinning it on me. Not that it would, of course. Reen? Right, let's get started. But, were there any primals aligned with darkness? I can't seem to recall any. You mean there isn't one?
Not in the general sense, no.
The Axian's god Zodiark may be suitable, but we need something that Thayrin and Rylea can actually encounter, and preferably defeat. Well, does it have to be a primal for it to work? If it's just a lot of darkness that would be needed, perhaps there are other ways to get it. You may be right. What we ultimately need is a state of highly charged darkness. It shouldn't matter what form it takes. Does anything come to mind, Thayrin, Rylea?
Sadly, yes.
I know a few void synth that would fit that bill. The creatures I unleashed while under the fairy's control? If we were able to summon one powerful enough, it just might work. cloud of darkness. I can't begin to imagine how powerful it must have been.
Okay, I'll go for that one over several of the others.
I'd say we found the perfect candidate. But where would we find a suitable place? One where darkness is strong. It won't be easy in a world flooded by light. Well, we've got the Warrior of Darkness and the Oracle of Darkness right here. It seems like a good enough spot to me. But what about the light-aligned aether that's all around us? That's where you come in. You can suppress the light while I draw out the darkness. By combining our powers, we can make it work wherever we are. Combining our powers. Yes, between us, there's nothing we can't achieve. Don't be afraid, Gaia. I'm not afraid. I'm just very concerned that this will all go horribly wrong, which is the same thing, I suppose. Anyway, it's certainly not easy coming up with these plans by ourselves. That's true, but when this is over, we can reward ourselves with all sorts of delicious treats at the festival. Festival? What do you mean? We spoke about it on the way here, remember? I asked you if you wanted to take part. I was busy piloting the Sky Slipper, so I probably wasn't paying attention. Oh, well, not to worry. We'll talk about that later. Right now, we've got a job to do. I'll draw out the ambient aether, and I'll shift its alignment to darkness. Now, Rylea, Thayrin, focus your thoughts.
Memories of the cloud of darkness shroud your mind. Umbra.
Reem? This is the first time we've tried this since the disaster with Shiva, so I'll be lying to say if I wasn't nervous. Even so, I can't afford to waver now. Gaia? I've called forth the real voids before, so everyone tells me anyway, but this is unknown territory for me. With those two of you by my side, though, I'm sure it'll work. Thayrin, would you like a party invite?
Yes, I would.
Rylea, I assume you want to go in as Bard?
Yeah. Either that or Red Mage. Which do you think, actually?
I'll go Red
Like
Mage. That way we don't have a
Okay.
duplicate and have more of a chance of the limit break popping.
Well, I was more thinking of picking people up.
I've got this.
Yeah. You're less likely to need picking up than I am.
I don't know. We're kind of doing this cold, and we've got a 12-minute wait. Ooh, boy.
So they say.
I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my current Red Mage. It's not as cool as the Moogle sword, but
Oh.
it's still pretty.
Oh, right. That's the new relic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's another one of the good relics. They have a bunch of them this time.
Though I have to admit, this is not a very Red Mage suit.
No.
At least I'm not trying this as Black Mage. Black Mage cold. Ugh. Thayrin. So you know, this is what the upgraded version looks like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Or
The farm is actually not that bad for it. It's just really snarly if you're trying to do multiples.
Okay.
So it's just like some fate farming and some a minor amount of dungeon running, and you've got it.
Okay.
Just remember to talk to Geralt's assistant over in Gangos, which is outside of Bozja, but you have to kind of open Bozja to get at him. Go for
Yeah.
it. So, what do we do while we wait?
Tiddlywinks?
Still, yeah, cloud of darkness.
I'm happier with that than, say, Ferdiad.
Okay, fair enough. I would not want to fight.
That was what I was concerned with.
Still, theoretically, cloud of darkness should be on the same level as Scathach.
Yeah.
And she was a bugger. Of course, Mr. Waifu Eater did not help matters.
Yeah, Diablos, which was the other one I was thinking they'd go for. I was thinking Diablos or maybe Ferdiad, and Cloud of Darkness, this is relatively sane, I'll take it.
For relative various varieties of sane. Oy. But yeah, how far have you gotten with Bozja yet?
I just started.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a haul. One of the things that was kind of recommended is you're soloing it, do it kind of as tank. Oh, here's a note you might be interested in with Bozja. Same with you, Rylea. Because they did not drop a new deep dungeon, they've actually added a leveling component inside of Bozja. So if you have a class up to 71, you go into Bozja as 80, you can then change to that class and then continue gaining XP in that area for that class.
Yep.
And
I saw that.
I've heard of people actually being able to go from like 71 to 80 within like a day or two.
Yeah, for the moment I'll stick with somehow finding time for more trust. One thing, I still need to level the trust.
You trust the
Same.
trust?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, I think they really need to kind of bridge the gap between the squads and the trust. Right now, squads drop off at 60, and then you have from 60 to 71 to kind of fumble about before you can pick up the trusts again for leveling purposes for alt classes. You do not want to use them to level main class. It's just not going to work. But I still get a gut feeling that we're going to get a trust update come the next expansion. At least I'm hoping
That'd
for
be
it.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of it is that the trust programming right now runs on a pre-Shadowbringer class model.
Not trust, but the
Squads. You're right. Not the trust, but the squads. This is why they're occasionally throwing things that we as players can't do anymore.
yeah.
Because they've changed how the classes work, but it's pre-programmed into their AI on their side. Also with squads and trusts both, the quality of gear you have affects their ability to actually function. So if you've got a gear score that's barely capable of running a dungeon, it's going to be rough. But if you're overgeared for the place, they're going to just cream it. I thought that was an interesting decision they made, but it also is nice in the fact that, yay, I don't have to go out and gear all these NPCs.
Oh, that would have sucked.
Looks like we're just waiting on tanks.
Yep.
Indeed, we finally filled out a bit.
Yeah, I know that it's actually pretty common in single players that if you have an AI companion, you get to effectively deck them out and you have to work on their gear, not just your own. And we actually had to do that a bit in SWTOR, didn't we?
Way back
yes.
when.
Yeah.
They got rid of that component.
Oh, they did?
Mhm.
They did that after I stopped playing, then. That's kind of sadness. I kind of liked dressing up my one calamari as a tin pot dictator.
Given certain events happen in the expansion, they had to.
Ah. Yeah, I have not played SWTOR in ages. For FF14 has tempered me.
I'll put it to you this way. You lose everybody that you had on your team.
Ouch!
They don't die, but you don't have them anymore.
Great, they
Some
got
point.
rid their companion system. That actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because their
I've been
companion
thinking
system was really nice, and the fact that
Yeah.
you could use it to fill out a dungeon party was a godsend for us.
Yeah, I really wish more MMOs would do that. Well, I've been thinking about it, eventually reinstalling it just so I can see how it runs on the current machine.
Any any mechanics and stuff that were before that expansion still work, but anything going forward, yeah, you don't have those people anymore. You can get some of them back though.
And of course, that's kind of evil when a couple of them were actually paid to get, like the Ewok.
Oh yeah, I have.
I think it's actually a her, but yeah.
Yeah. So I can't remember 100% how everything works, but for the most part, all of your original squad changes, and the people you can bring in are different.
And of course, it also linked into one of the aspects I really didn't like with SWTOR, which was their crafting system.
Yeah, that wasn't so great.
Well, it and Neverwinter kind of went the same route in the fact that you didn't actually craft anything, you just set your guys out to craft it for you, and they'll come back like in 24 hours with the item. And that just kind of killed crafting for me. It's like, no, I should be creating the item. Why am I sending a bot out for it?
Yeah, that I didn't have so much of a problem with. But SWTOR did have the problem of
Hello.
Yeah, there it pops. There we go.
and everybody hits the button. No waiting half a
about
second or half a minute, wondering if that last tank will actually bother to join in.
Yes. Always cross your fingers when that happens.
Oh my gosh, the music.
Oh, yes.
I'm drawing out the darkness. Get ready.
Man, they are going all out Final Fantasy VIII on us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a little different.
It worked,
Just
Gaia.
bit.
We've done it.
This ought to be interesting.
Shit. they lock you out if you haven't done the Circus Tower set?
In order to do this expansion, or this patch, you have to have done Circus Tower.
And this would be why. Okay then.
That was fun. I started out by botching my rotation. Nice!
Well, you still remember how to floor tank, right? Whoa. Got hit by that. Ow!
Something tells me this is not OSHA compliant.
Yeah. Oh,
Get away from the tank!
wrong
Get away
way.
from the tank!
I thought I saw a regular stack marker for a moment.
Watch the squares!
Yeah. Darkness swallows all, even the ground beneath your feet.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, same here. Don't like this. No, don't like, no. Didn't like it at all.
Ouch.
Say you have a healer to pick up.
Yeah, I'm currently botching my rotation on it.
Oh dear. I hate that. Tethers, okay.
Not sure what I'm supposed
Thank
to do
you.
with them.
Where's the cursor gone off to?
I hate that.
That's new.
Ow.
Ow. Tethers on her.
Don't be in the
That's what
tire
that was about.
patch!
Yeah. I discovered that.
Stay away from the tank.
Yep.
Meteors incoming.
Crap. I know it got hit that time.
Here we go on this sequence again.
Even though I haven't the slightest idea what it does.
Hypercharged cloud.
Saw it too late.
hitting something that makes me run forward when I'm not trying to.
Okay, tethers. No idea what to do with these.
I think you get distance on them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotta love intricate.
And then get to the...
Yeah, didn't get here fast enough.
Yeah. Oh, the joy of doing mech's cold.
Yeah, like Shinra.
Hey, we were doing good on him. That is a tiny hole.
I use limit break.
Not yet. I'd actually hold on this one in case the healers need it.
Right.
Yep. Ow! Dang it! I could not steer.
That was rough.
Just when I was all charged up.
Yeah. Finally. Kept missing my rotation.
There's Cloud. Crap. Crap.
Whew. Down.
And down. At least our healers have been doing a good job.
Yeah. Tethered. Oh, right, this is a getaway.
I missed that one.
It's hard to keep track of some of those.
That is right. Yeah, that's amazingly tiny.
Well, they do go off in sequence instead of on top of each other, so you can actually move into the one circle and then get out as soon as the other pops.
Dead.
These healers are under a lot of strain.
And I have no mana.
rezzed.
Charged clouds.
She got it.
Ouch.
Oh, that was messy.
Yeah.
Oh no, Ace. Oh,
I'm sorry to hear that, Ace.
Oh, I hope you're okay.
Yeah.
Please rest and get better. As you can see, we like messily just cleared our first of
1 of 4.
duties of the new Eden. I'm getting
Corona,
Ima.
you. Okay, I got Corona. I think they rezzed me more than the other one. What do I want?
Probably a ring, because this is probably going to be a weekly lock, but a single ring you can turn in, or a belt.
Yeah. I've got a 480 ring, sure.
Got something. Yeah, got a ring.
Yeah, I got a ring.
I got a ring.
And yeah, it does look like it's a weekly lockout.
But it's
Yeah, that's
just
the way
for
it usually
this
works at this
one.
point.
If you do the next one, you can still roll for multiple.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
it's a lockout per
Instance.
raid.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one will drop a weapon token that you will get once a week, but it drops for everyone that first time.
Oh,
Oh, that sucks, Ace.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Please, please, please take care of yourself and get better.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everyone have their fingers, toes, adrenaline. I have lots of adrenaline.
Reen. So, that was what a world flooded by darkness would look like?
Approximately, yes, actually.
Well, that went surprisingly well. Of course, we have Thayrin and Rylea to thank for slaying that ghastly creature. And Thayrin too!
And a couple of healers for keeping us going. Thank you.
Yes, those healers were good. Bless you both. You were fantastic, Gaia. Anyone would think you're an old hand at this. You weren't bad yourself. We make quite the team, don't we? We certainly do. I don't know about you two, but I'm itching to see what our hard work has paid off. Let's head back.
Summons. Why is it summons?
Not much change. The plants are just as lifeless as they were before. Maybe the light's influence is too strong?
What's the crystal looking like?
What in the world?
Hmm.
Oh. In fleeting hues and endless warmth, the gentle light washed over me. A glimmer of hope, once lost.
Yeah, I'd been a little disturbed that, each time the crystal is dominated by one element.
Green? I'm still not sure what the enormous crystal actually does, or why it changes color, but I'm pretty sure it didn't look like that before. Yeah. Gaia?
It was not something out of Robot Unicorn Attack before.
No.
Shadows of the past. Gaia is more than a little vexed that your last outing did not result in greater changes in the empty. And more sevens.
We tipped the scales away from the light, I'm sure of it. But something's wrong. Very wrong. For hundreds of years long, I have waited for this moment. I knew it. You were hiding inside Eden all this time.
Oh boy.
Oh, hello.
Really?
An Asian.
I am Metron, servant of Zodiark.
The voice that has whispered to me all my life.
Indeed, and thanks to you, I am all but free from my prison of light.
Does this mean Eden was used to seal away an Asian?
That'd be a really big white aura site.
Wait, that is Eden, an Asian transformed into a Sin Eater. Ow. Humph! I've heard enough about the Asians to know they're nothing but trouble. I never imagined that one of them was behind all this. No, that actually makes sense, Gaia. I thought that restoring the darkness was my idea, but this was your plan from the very beginning.
It was. But all it took was the slightest suggestion. The rest was entirely your own doing. Ah, my freedom is so close I can almost taste it. Finally, my soul may journey beyond the flesh to which I am yet bound. This plan would probably have gone better if you just kept hiding until, like, another year or so.
Yeah.
If that long.
Okay, I wasn't the only one thinking that.
Nope.
Asians, you may be immortal beings, but you still have not learned to keep your traps shut.
Certainly not learned much patience. I knew you would come for me, Gaia.
Humph, don't flatter yourself. You've caused me nothing but pain. If I've helped you, it wasn't intentional.
Even now your memories elude you. Hearken unto me, Gaia, and remember. In an age past, the world you knew as the 13th was flooded by darkness. Like ripples in water, the repercussions were felt in the other shards. None more so than here on the first. It became perilously imbalanced and susceptible to the influence of light. Were light to consume the first as darkness did the 13th, it would likewise become a lifeless void lost to our cause. We could not allow this mistake to be repeated. It was our duty to safeguard this world from the self-same fate. After a time, Emmett Cell conceived of a plan to trigger a rejoining, utilizing the very light we had labored to keep in check, and tasked us with bringing the plan to fruition. But at the last, we were thwarted by Erdbert and his companions. Though our resolve was strong, theirs was stronger still. And as we fell, so too was the light unleashed. For us, however, death is not the end. Though our bodies may perish, our souls live on, withdrawing but temporarily to the rift.
Until you can find a new body to possess.
I too would have been reborn, but ere my soul could leave its corporeal form, Ardbert struck me with a blade of purest light, and that light enveloped my body, twisting it beyond recognition.
Eden, the first Sin Eater.
My soul felt such agony as I have never known, and then I knew no more. In my insensate, instinctive state, influenced by Erdbert's fervent desire to banish darkness, I unleashed the light burgeoning within me, and it spread as an all-consuming wave to every corner of the world.
The flood of light. So that's how the Sin Eaters came to be.
All would have been lost had not the one called Menphilia appeared. Halting the light's inexorable advance, she saved what little still remained of the world. In the process, she also restored to me a sliver of my consciousness, though I remained trapped in my altered form. Motionless, I was capable only of feeble whispering.
Emmett Sulk, couldn't he have saved you?
Perhaps he could have, if such had been his wish. Far easier, however, to simply find another piece of my fractured soul to replace me. From his perspective, there was no need to intervene and potentially disturb the balance of Aether, and so here I remained.
So after you failed, he left you here to rot. Some friend he turned out to be.
Yep. Thus abandoned, I called out for what seemed like an eternity to the only soul who could save me. You, Gaia.
All this time, you were calling to me for help?
Yes, but you had forgotten me, forgotten our duty. Though vestiges of your true power remained, you could not wield it at will. Time went by, and eventually change came. The light began to subside, and the dark of night returned. All in a day's work. Gradually, my voice grew stronger until I was able to exert my will over you.
You wanted me to free your soul from Eden, which is why you had me attack it. Another plan that ended in failure, thanks to Rylea and Thayrin.
Indeed. Thankfully, your subsequent attempts to restore this barren land allowed Eden to absorb more and more aether aligned closer to darkness, gradually eroding the cage of light that holds me. Owing to your most recent efforts, my mind is wholly my own once more, and I am able to project my image beyond those confines.
Then all this time we've been helping free an Ascian? Wow, that took you this long, Reen? We need to have a talk. Humph, that's a fine tale, but why should I care about any of it? What are you to me?
Come with me to Eden's core. There, all shall become clear.
Wait!
For something that's basically, a Sin Eater created out of an Ascian soul, it's still amazingly technological on the inside.
Yeah. Gaia? I have a bad feeling about this, but if we want to restore the land, we need to know what we're dealing with.
Don't get interrupted here when you go to bed.
And
I just realized something. If Eden has been absorbing all that rebalanced aether, that must be why we're struggling to restore the life to the empty. I suppose we can think about it later, though. More importantly, it seems I've lost control over Eden. Most likely because of the Ascian. Oriange specifically warned us about not listening to the fairy's honeyed words, so we better think this through before we go rushing in. Oh, if only he and Thancred were here now.
hurry, but it wasn't going to work out.
What are you talking about? I'm sorry, Gaia. I shouldn't be so quick to lose heart. What now? No, that's not what I meant. Who are Oriange and Thancred? Oh dear. Wait, I know these people. I'm sure of it. But why can't I remember them? I thought there was something strange when I mentioned the festival on board Eden. I thought it was as though you had no recollection of our earlier conversation. This is most likely connected to Mitron. Or Mitron. Damn it all! Well, what more is that fiend going to take from me? To tell the truth, the thing that frightens me most is that you might forget about us. That won't happen. For every memory I lose, we'll just make 2 more together. And if I need to know something, I can just ask you. Why not start by telling me about Oriange and Thancred? To be honest, my nerves are all a jitter, so I need something to help me settle me down before we confront Mitron. Oriange is probably the most intelligent person I know. Yes, and he's also a derp. I love him dearly, but he's a derp. He spends a lot of time reading, but he also says that you can't learn everything from books, and encouraged me to go out and see the world for myself. Sounds sensible to me. Much better to experience things firsthand than to read about them someone else's. Like those coffee biscuits. No book could ever describe how good they taste. Is there anything else you can tell me about him, Thayrin? Rylea? Uh-oh, here comes the question.
He can walk on water until he can't.
Oh, that is cruel.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I love my husbando, but...
Walk on water until
he
he can't.
can't. So he walks on water instead of swimming? That would certainly save you from getting wet. I should have asked him how to teach me how.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually.
Well, it's something he's never quite mastered himself, and he's often ended up getting wet anyways. In fact, the whole thing is probably more trouble than it's worth. As for Thayrin, he's the one who freed me from Yulmore. At first I thought of him as my knight in shining armor, but really he was much more than that. We traveled all over Norvrant, and he helped me become the person I am today. He even gave me my name.
He's also an expert in infiltration.
Hopefully he's left his Playboy days behind him. He seems to have done so in the first.
Generally speaking, yeah. A lot of it really, honestly, was basically to distract himself from Rylea.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't need that distraction.
That would explain how he was able to sneak into Yulmore and rescue the damsel in distress, just like the songs. Humph! I'm hardly a damsel in distress. Well, I suppose I was back then. But Thayrin taught me how to fight and survive. Actually, while we're on the subject, that gunblade over there belonged to Thayrin. As far as memento goes, it's a bit on the cumbersome side, but it reminds me of our adventures together. Even though there's a little chance I'll ever see him again, it still feels like he's here with me. Keeping your memories close.
You have up your sleeve.
You know what? I should keep a diary. Even if I forget things, at least I will have something to look back on. That's a brilliant idea. Since we're going to be making a lot of new memories together, maybe I could write one too. As long as you improve your handwriting before you go scrawling all over it. I'd like your entries to be vaguely legible, if you don't mind. Of course, your ladyship. But before that, we've got an Ascian to deal with. Let's get this over with. Do we want to pause here since it is after 11?
We will need to.
Checking with Rena and Gaia real quick.
Yeah.
When I think back to the days I spent with everyone, it was always the tiny frivolous details that spring to mind. The smiles, the little gestures. It's not as though I made a conscious effort to remember them, but they stuck with me all the same. I suppose that's what memories are, a collection of those seemingly insignificant moments. While they may not have made a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, they mean the world to me. Gaia? It was good to hear about our friends. I still have no recollection of them whatsoever. It's just like all those things Mitron was saying. How can I even tell if they're true or not if I don't remember? Well, there's no point dwelling on it, though. Nothing for it but to press on. And you two will press on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday we'll probably start at, 9:30 hopefully? I know we got a little late, but we were trying to wrap up something beforehand.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
But should be around 9:30 again.
Yay, 510 gear.
Yay! I take it spend the night in Mordsuk.
Something like that.
I really like the Mord. I'll take them over kobolds any day. Well, Thayrin, have you actually tried some of the Beastman Kobold Tribe quests?
A few of them, but I haven't really delved into it.
The kobolds... I really didn't like helping them. Mostly because that particular group was a bunch of lazy, good-for-nothings. Why go and do something yourself when you can send an adventure to do it for you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something of a lack of cheers here.
Yeah, well. Thank you all very much for joining us. We will pick this up on Wednesday and get our next part. Having Mitron show up was interesting. I was not expecting that.
Well, I remember the Emmett Sulk mentioning there was like 2 Asians
Yeah.
who kind of got sacrificed.
Yeah.
2.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So yeah, so he showed up. Oh, I know who you are roughly.
Yeah, he was the one who caused the flood of light after they failed to get that with bringing down the Shadowkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't actually bring down the Shadowkeeper. For good reasons. And I believe they stated in the histories that the other Ascian had already been knocked off, technically. So we'll have to see how this plays out. It's interesting to see that he confirmed that he was a shattered Ascian as opposed to an unsundered.
Yep. Which makes sense since, it's kind of known that, nope, there's no unsundered left.
Yep. They're all gone.
Yeah, they were just the 3.
Yeah, they were just the 3. La Brea got nom-nommed by Lord Thornton. Emmett Sulk, we know it happened to him. That was kind of our fault.
Yeah.
And Elidibus... yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, technically, Elidibus is still around. He just can't do anything. Because he's held up in prison. Ascian prison, as it were.
Yeah, rather extensive timeout.
Yes, a very big... Hey, you're in the penalty box! Plop. Anyway, we'll hope to see you on Wednesday night starting at 9:30, and we'll try and unlock more Eden. There is technically 4 wings. I have a feeling I know who the second boss is going to be, and I'm not saying anything. Past that, it's been completely unknown who the last 2 bosses are.
I think we know who number 4 will be.
More than likely, yes, but you never know. They've thrown us ringers before.
Yep.
Anyway, you guys get a good night's sleep. Please rest and get better.
Yeah.
We're
Good
rooting
luck with
for
all
you. Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.